Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. In previous episodes, I've actually talked about how long you should stretch a muscle to get optimal flexibility, and the best ways to stretch to increase flexibility. And we tend to think of flexibility as a good thing, but it turns out that being too flexible can be a problem. In fact, there are certain situations in which having stiff muscles is actually a good thing. And in today's episode, you're going to learn exactly when and why you need to have stiff muscles. Lower extremity stiffness, like stiffness in your quadriceps, hamstrings, calves, and ankles, is considered to be a key attribute in the enhancement of running, jumping, and hopping activities. If you can store more elastic energy upon landing when your feet or foot strikes the ground and generate more force output at push-off, you can reduce muscular fatigue and increase your speed, your explosiveness, and your overall performance. So what exactly are stiff muscles? Well, in exercise science, muscle stiffness is treated much like spring stiffness. Think about a spring. The more stiff and springy that spring is, the harder it is to compress, and the more explosiveness it can potentially store as energy. A weak, stretchy spring, on the other hand, stores less energy and produces less explosiveness. Well, stiffness is measured in an exercise science laboratory as what's called the quotient of force to length. So in the human body, stiffness is quantified from both the level of a single muscle fiber to the level of the entire body, very similar to one giant spring. How much force can you produce compared to how long that fiber or that body link is? Well, a muscle or a body system that stretches less and has fibers that are harder to compress or that are able to store more energy is considered to be more stiff, while a stretchy, flexible muscle is considered less stiff. Now, in the show notes over at quickanddirtytips.com for this episode number 210, I'll put a link to a great study that goes more into the science of the relationship between muscle stiffness and the spring measurements that they use in exercise science labs. Now, you'd think that having stiff, soft tissue would increase your risk of tearing, straining, or spraining a muscle, ligament, or tendon during activity, but it's simply not so. Instead, research has shown that there is an optimal level of stiffness. Just like a very tight rubber band, extremely stiff muscles allow you to produce lots of force and explosiveness, but those muscles may indeed be more likely to tear, or the bone attached to that muscle may be more likely to get a stress fracture. In contrast, just like a very loose rubber band, muscles that aren't stiff enough to be supportive of joints can lead to higher risk of those joints being injured. Overly flexible hamstrings or quadriceps, for example, could potentially allow your kneecaps to move around too much during a squat, a run, or a bike ride. Now, one study from Cal Poly in California compared running economy and flexibility in runners and found an inverse relationship between lower leg joint flexibility and running economy. For example, too much flexibility or not enough muscle stiffness in the Achilles tendons and the knee tendons made it easier for a runner to, say, touch their toes, but less economical when they actually ran. So the harder it is for you to touch your toes, the more economical your running might be. In a case like this, being super stretchy might not just make you more susceptible to knee injury, but could also potentially decrease your performance. Now, interestingly, the more fatigued you become when you're running, jumping, or performing other explosive movements, the less stiff and explosive your muscles become, and the more necessary it becomes for your joints to absorb that load instead. For example, towards the end of a marathon, your quadriceps, hamstrings, and calf muscles lose their springiness, which puts excessive strain on the knee joints. The more tired a muscle is when beginning an activity, the more likely that is to occur. And that's why going into any explosive or repetitive performance activity as fully recovered as possible is a very good idea. So now you know it can be good to be stiff, that it's not necessarily the best thing to be uber flexible, and that when it comes to performance and injury prevention, there is a law of diminishing returns with flexibility. Well, let's look at how you can actually increase your muscle stiffness, your springiness, and the ability of your muscles to store energy. So, the most up to date research shows that several different exercise interventions can increase muscle stiffness and decrease susceptibility of muscles to getting injured. And the most effective of these are plyometrics, eccentric strength training, isometric strength training, and weight training. Let's define what those are real quick. Plyometrics, such as skipping, jumping, hopping, leaping, and bounding, are something that you learn all about in my episode called Superhuman Strength Secrets, and I'll link to that over in the show notes at quickanddirtytips.com. So check that out for all the details and instructions you need on plyometrics. Eccentric strength training involves lowering the weights that you lift very slowly, or even doing super slow body weight lunges, super slow squats, or super slow push-ups. Isometric strength training involves holding a muscle in a position for an extended period of time, like a body weight lunge hold or a wall squat hold. And finally, you can learn everything you need to know about weight training in multiple Get Fit Guy episodes. I'd suggest you just go to quickanddirtytips.com and search for weight training to get some of the top episodes. Or better yet, read my comprehensive book on how to weight train for your specific body type. And that's over at getfitguy.com. Now, interestingly, combining weight training and plyometric training together can increase muscle stiffness even more than doing these activities in isolation. For example, doing a barbell squat set followed by a jump squat set can increase muscle stiffness more than doing a jump squat all by itself. Well, for more guidelines on exercises to develop muscle stiffness, you should check out the chart that I'm going to put in the show notes for you over at quickanddirtytips.com. It's taken from a study in the National Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research called Lower Extremity Stiffness, Effects on Performance and Injury and Implications for Training. I know that's a mouthful, but I'll put a link to it, and it's got a bunch of really good practical recommendations for workouts that will help you increase your muscle stiffness, your explosiveness, and your performance. And if you have more questions about this stuff, then go ask your question or join any of the other fantastic fitness conversations going on right now over at facebook.com/getfitguy. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.